Vietnam is a war that is over, but for some, the victims, it hasn't ended yet. There are all sorts of victims, including the children the GIs left behind them. This Trout's cover story today reminded me of the old hymn, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. The hero of Trout's story is found, but not yet saved. Her report begins at what used to be the American Air Base at Bien Hoa.
These are the lifeless souvenirs of a war long past. And these are its living legacy. They can always be found at the edge of the old American military bases, these children the Vietnamese call bui doi, the children of the dust, worthless, throwaway things, at the mercy of wind and time, not to mention politics. And have they always lived across from the military base?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes. Does he remember his father at all? No, he doesn't know. Does he think about him a lot?
Cháu chưa ra là bố cháu ra đi rồi.
I don't know because I was so small and my father left.
War requires bravery of men, the kind that is obvious and sometimes glamorous. But to admit to fathering and abandoning a child demands a quiet courage. And there are no medals for it. It is not unusual in Vietnam to walk down a street or through a village and spot an almost familiar face, an Amerasian. It is much more difficult to speak to one because it's discouraged officially. We met Nguyen Thanh My in the Chinese quarter of the city, but it took more than a week of negotiating with the Vietnamese government before we were allowed to approach him. Like his face, Nguyen Thanh My's name is the clue to the past. My is Vietnamese for American. He is 19 now. His American father lived with his Vietnamese mother but didn't marry her. The father left Vietnam 10 days before My was born. When he was 3 years old, My's mother went to America for a visit, married another American, and never returned. My works in a cooperative, sawing and cutting wood for export to the Soviet Union. He makes roughly 25 cents a day. He applied for an exit visa to leave Vietnam 5 years ago, and in the meantime has tried twice to escape by boat. He lives with his aunt and her 5 children in a 2-room house. We do not have enough food to eat, she said. My's mother writes often, still pained by the fact that what she intended as a brief visit to the United States resulted in marriage, divorce, and a 16-year separation from Me. Now she's trying to bridge those years with reassurance that one day they'll be together again.
And maybe we shall find a happy life together with me and you.
All my friends have parents, he said, and that makes me sad.
He doesn't know his father's name, does he?
Em có biết cha em làm quân sự hay là làm cái nghề gì đó không? I don't know anything about my father.
Except that he was an American.
Chỉ biết là một cái điều duy nhất là cha em là người Mỹ, các bạn. Yes.
And does he ever, if he went to the United States, is one of his wishes to find his father?
Nếu như mà em đi Mỹ thì em có hy vọng rằng được tìm cha không?
Có hy vọng mà được tìm cha.
I wish to.
For me, finding his father is a task for the future. For the present, he is still asking why his mother left him alone in Vietnam so many years ago.
I just say, you know, I wish someday you come over and Mommy would sit down and try to explain to you, you know, and things that happen. I will explain to him that I've been here, I try to work and to save money to help him.
Hoa is now 44 years old and lives in the Simi Valley just north of Los Angeles. She works as an inspector at a local electronics plant.
Morning, girl.
It may appear comfortable from afar, but like so many Vietnamese women, Hoa's life has been shaped and hardened by war. She has 3 sons, a 21-year-old from her Vietnamese husband who was killed in the war, a 12-year-old from her marriage to an American captain from whom she is now divorced, and me, left behind in Vietnam, the son in search of a father. He also said, when I get to the United States, I intend to find my father. Mm-hmm. Does that surprise you?
No.
Why not?
Because he had a right to, he went to who is his father.
Hoa's story is not unlike that of countless women who, especially during war, depend on the kindness of strangers. Hoa lived in the city of Dalat in the early 1960s when the American buildup was in high gear. She worked as a maid in the home of a U.S. government employee and his family. The American's name was Dick, and after his wife left Vietnam, he and Hoa stayed together. Eventually, Hoa became pregnant, and ultimately, Dick's job was finished and he left for the United States. The baby me was born 10 days after Hoa and Dick said goodbye for what they thought was forever. It is a story told 1,000 times. What did he look like? You described his appearance.
Okay, he's look tall, big, and he had a beard.
A beard?
Mm-hmm.
Eyeglasses?
Eyeglass, yes.
Anything else you remember?
That's it.
That was it. She didn't even know his last name. Hoa admits she should have moved sooner to get me out of Vietnam, for by 1975, Saigon had fallen and it was too late. She has filed reams of documents in an effort to bring him to the United States. It is now strictly up to the Vietnamese government. In the meantime, Hoa's scrapbook lies on the dining room table, filled with its images of another time. But there are no pictures of the man named Dick who fathered her Amerasian child.
It looks very American. I'd say more American than Asian. It was a surprise in a way, as I possibly expected a little bit from what you told me before. I saw the pictures.
12,000 miles away from Vietnam, 3,000 miles away from California, we found the man with the beard and eyeglasses whose name is Dick. Using a network of old friends and colleagues from the Vietnam War days, we found him in a suburb of Washington, D.C. He requested that we do not reveal his residence or his last name. This man, who worked as a civilian government employee in Vietnam, has acknowledged that he is, in fact, the father of the boy named me.
I think that I saw myself in him. I saw possibly features one of my other sons in him. Certainly no question that he's my son in my mind.
Dick's family is aware of the Dalat period of his life and the existence of me.
I don't want anything to, interfere with him, with his family. Only thing that I want to get the son over.
How long did this relationship go on, Dick, before Hoa realized that she was pregnant?
I realized it. She told me, if I remember correctly, within a couple months or so after she was pregnant. I suggested at the time that not knowing what the circumstances were or what might happen to me at the time, that possibly she would be wise to have had an abortion.
Did you think that maybe he might stay or might take you back to the United States?
I don't dream about it. He take me back to the United States. I do like to go to the United States, but I know that for myself, I would. I don't want to interrupt with married people. You know, marry, have family.
And did he say to you, "But when I leave alone"?
He doesn't say that, but I know that.
I see.
I actually did my best to try to stay there, at least until after the baby was born, and not knowing exactly what I could do, but I was prevented from doing so.
He said he feels sorry, you know, he want to be there when the baby be born, but he can't. So I say, yeah, I understand.
How did you feel at that time about all that?
You know what they feel, but so bad, but what can I do?
It was a good relationship. The results of it were unfortunate. But I don't think that either Wa or myself at the time intended, but as I'd say, anything bad to happen. And I consider, of course, what has happened to him being left in the country as bad. But I think at the time that it was an honest relationship. And so I couldn't in my own mind condemn myself or condemn her for what we did.
Were you in love with her?
Probably so. I was very, very fond of her. I think the main concern right now is doing everything we can to get our son back into the United States.
I hope someday we be together, but I don't know how soon or how late, when and what day or what year. But in my feeling, I know someday we together.